What you do with it, how you use it. You guys are all, 60, 70 individuals who are all so vastly different. The house prides itself on one hand, not being sort of this fluffy presenter of ideas that are generic. On the flip side, not something that's just about social and getting together. We realize everyone likes to go out and have a good time, but everybody here could probably be many different places. And the reason why I think people come together at the house is because they feel that part of their personality really gets nourished by thought that challenges them. And then what they do with that is up to them. So we always say, we hope you walk out our doors more than you were before you walked in, but what you do with it is really personal and up to your own, what we call Jewish climb rather than a Jewish journey, because we're hoping to always move up now. So, let us begin. With your permission, I'm actually going to go for any doctors here? Jugular. For the jugular. It's the third time. Truth is, it's a very different crowd, and I don't know many people here yet, although some people it's nice to see again after a long time not seeing them. Other people, nice to meet them for the first time. They actually will start with a joke, because, well, Noah, tell me if it's good during comedy right now. Okay, so they tell a joke of this, militant atheist who's raising his kids. And he decides that he wants to give them a good, he's a Jewish militant atheist, and he wants them to have a good education. So what he decides is he's going to send them to this Trinity school. He doesn't care about the denomination so much, it's just a good school, private school, fine. Anyhow, the kid goes to grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Finally, grade 4, the kid comes home and says, Dad, by the way, do you even know what Trinity means? His father's getting a little bit taken aback. He's like, what do you mean? He says, well, there's 3 gods. There's the Father, there's the Son, there's Holy Ghost, and the Father loses. He says, listen here, Davy. He says, there's only one God, and that's the one we don't believe in. So, this is the jugular. And to get to the jugular, I actually had to go through a lot of Google pictures that were really gross. This is the cleanest one. But the jugular, in my opinion, is really, in such a big way, going after this guy. Namely?
God.
God.
Listen, if that's my God, I'm cool.
When I think God, maybe that's a little bit more. I mean, if you take our votes on it, I guess. Who votes for him? If you have to choose for him. God is often the unspoken word. It's a landmine. One of the reasons why it's a landmine, I think, is because often people approach it from a sense of, hey, this is what I'm going to sell you about God, as opposed to exploring it. What's another nice thing about the house is it has people from such different perspectives. And ironically, usually for some reason, different perspectives separate people, and the house somehow sort of brings people together. It makes the talk and discussions that much more dynamic, opens up channels of thought that might not have happened, and then hopefully in many ways in the conversation itself, people get enriched. So we're going to talk about God. Why? Because the truth is, Rosh Hashanah is really, if you look through the liturgy, no matter what synagogue or prayer book you happen to pick up, except for my neighbor down on some of the houses down on the other side of the street, went to a humanistic, which took out God from it. But it's putting that aside, even still, she enjoyed the conversation when I said, why is it good humanistic, and we spoke about God. Because ultimately, it's the liturgy. It's the literature. So what I'd like to do today is focus on 3 different areas. We will not get anywhere close to understanding really what God is or isn't. But hopefully we'll try to pick out some ideas that could be really relevant and meaningful. And like the house always does, find things that you can take back into your everyday life that can empower you. So this is where I found God. About 2 weeks ago. I had the luck of having Danny Richmond with me as well. He was the last one to feel spotty, almost didn't do that. But when I said, come on, it's on me, I was actually on the house. So he said, no problem. And I'm up there, I think it's approximately 1,164 feet in the air. And I started to think about many things, my children, my life, what I'm doing up there. And it dawned on me the following dichotomy. If you focus in, the picture that they took was brilliant. I don't remember what the guy's name was, from Australia, who was our guide. But he took a great shot.
New Zealand.
Focus in on this part of the shot, right here. I love that shot. Roy Thompson, right? So that's Metro. Okay, so Metro, right? So I'm taking that step again. If you go back here, right? And really, what I'm about to do is take this step off, right? The guy behind me, who's a good friend of mine and a good friend of Aaron's, you can see he's like, no way, the whole time. And I'm like, let's give it a shot. I won't show you who he is, because they don't think this. Okay, so what is it about this shot right over here that I find amazing? So I have one foot firmly planted on the edge, on the ground, and one that's over the edge. And I thought to myself the following: what's really my reason for not falling off? There's two things you have. You've got steps, and you've got a cable. So I ask you the following. It can be by a show of hands. If I said you can only have one, you can either have this edge, which is the same size as a sidewalk, and that you can be walking around 1,174 feet up in the air because it's firmly planted on the ground, your feet. Or there was no edge, but they had this cable that he said, I believe, can hold up something like 57 large elephants without even like thinking about shredding. And that was what was holding you up 1,164 feet. So which one would you prefer to have? By a show of hands, don't look around for the answer. Take about 10 seconds to think about that. You have to choose one. They say, sir, welcome up. We've decided to go ahead and make it a little more exciting because the truth is everybody knows nobody dies on this, so it's not that defined. We're going to take away one. You get your choice, right? Which one would you choose? Anybody who says they're going to choose, we'll start here, with the edge, with the sidewalk. Raise your hand.
Take it away?
You get the sidewalk. You walking on the sidewalk, raise your hand. Anybody who says they'd like the cable holding them on top? So, that is brilliant. That is exactly the process that I went through. See, many times through life we think, hey, you know what? I got it. I'm walking, I got my feet on the ground, I'm in control. If there was like even so much as a up there, I would be like clutching onto, like, you know, Mark was clutching to Danny, was clutching to, eventually to Yoels, the one guy who had to pay us, so he actually had something to hold on to. Right? I'd be holding for dear life, right? Because you know what? I'm not connected to anything. So winds of change and this and that will just blow me over. This, ironically, even though it seems like I've got nothing to really put my feet on, ironically, and you just said it wasn't a setup. This is the process I went through. I said, you know what, I feel a lot safer if I knew that something up there was really tethering me. And in many ways, I think that's a little bit of what Rosh Hashanah is about. You know, we want both, obviously. But many times we go through difficulties in life or challenges, and we just feel like, you know what, there's just no way. Right? And not as an opiate for the masses, but a sense of, you know, there's something holding me down here, but there's something tethering me up there also. And I think Rosh Hashanah is about reconnecting to what exactly that is. How strong is that cable? What do I think about that? And realizing that, yeah, you know what, sometimes life is unbearable, and if I think that's it, it's all up to my footing, right? One more step, I'm off. That's it. But as long as a person has that sense of, wait, I've got some sort of understanding that there's something up there that I can hold on to, it's an entirely different experience. It's like a guy who watches a football game for his favorite team. And every time he wins, he's so happy. Every time they lose, he's so sad. And one time, he misses the game, so he tapes it. And somebody says, hey, it's a great game. The team won. He's like, darn, but he loves the game anyhow. And they're playing the game, and they're down by 10, they're down by 20, they're down by 30. And he notices he's not cursing, he's not smashing beer bottles, he's not yelling and screaming. He's like, why not? They're down by 30. He says, wait, I know I'm going to win in the end. Right? I know the end of the story. It's going to work out. So why should I stress right now? Because I got something that's telling me at the end, it's all going to work out. And I think that's perhaps maybe the first tidbit of Rosh Hashanah, which I think is so applicable for people to pull out. And again, we're not talking what is God, who is it? Forget about that. Point number one. Any questions, like I said, feel free to pop in. Challenging is fantastic because any thought that somebody has, which is either a whole or a nuance they want to add, helps for all of us. But that's number one. Let's move to number two. It's going to be a long night. Who wants to read? No, okay. So the first reading that we have on the first day of the holiday is about, does anybody remember or know what it is? I usually go out during the reading anyhow to teach sometimes. Anybody, the reading in the beginning talks about, mainly, one of the big reasons why they say, if you look at the first sentence, right? The Lord, I didn't really edit this, it's like old English, right? The Lord remembered Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken, and Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham, basically, and Yitzhak came to be. And according to our tradition, Yitzhak and Sarah's prayers were answered on Rosh Hashanah. Yitzhak was born on Rosh Hashanah. right? And therefore, on Rosh Hashanah, we do that. By the way, the other totally caveat, maybe we'll do this next year, but it's got to be a split crowd. Rosh Hashanah is really all about the women. All the reading that we do is about women. Everything's about them in many very real ways. It's actually my Yom Kippur's Rasha on the Kol Nidre. I'm only going to address the women in my audience because everything Jewish is all about women. But not for now. Okay, so basically what happens is they have a kid. They have a kid on that day, therefore, okay, it's important. And therefore we read this. The only problem with that explanation is this whole passage of Isaac, right, basically is just about him here, the first 8 sentences. Then you've got the rest of the reading. It's as if we forgot to close the chapter and say, wait, like cut, end of story, we've got what we want. Then it goes on to all this other stuff, which seems to be extremely irrelevant, about Ishmael and about Abimelech and other people. And everyone's like, why don't I just read the 8 psukim and just stay where it is? Why do we need all this other stuff? So I saw a beautiful explanation. This would be point number 2. Beautiful explanation is this entire middle piece over here. Another day we can talk about the third piece. Has one of the most important sentences, I believe, in all of Rosh Hashanah theology. There's a sentence over here about when basically Ishmael gets sent out and he's crying, he's on his deathbed basically. Hagar, his mother, is like sitting there bawling, he's about to wither away. And all of a sudden, amidst the crying, it says, and God heard the cry of the lad, Ishmael, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said unto her, what troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise and lift him up, and I will make him into a great nation. And Ishmael becomes the great nation that we know about today. He was on his deathbed, he cried, and at that moment God said, I'm there for him. And there's a fascinating passage in the Talmud, which says as follows. All of Rosh Hashanah we learn out from this passage. It says as follows, a person is only judged according to his actions at the time. As it says, for God heard the voice of the lad where he is. Explanation, Ishmael did not have such a good past. In the future, it didn't seem like he was going down a good path, so you would have thought God would have said, hey, that's it, end of story. But he said, you know what, where he is right now is actually just so good. This moment where he is so pure and there's nothing wrong with him, how can I judge him? Because right now he's great. And the Talmud goes on to explain that because of that, we have a chance on Rosh Hashanah, even though I have a certain past, I have a certain future, but right now, when I'm sitting there, assuming that I'm not talking during the rabbi's sermon or something, I'm not such a bad guy or girl, I'm doing my thing, and right now, if you judge me, I'm a pretty decent Jew. That's basically it. So my question is, like, why? That's it's such a stupid system. It's kind of like, okay, I'm not really going to look at who you are, or what you did, or what you didn't do, or what you're going to do. But right now, hey, you're great. You're here, me and you. That's fine. Let's, write a bill. It's like someone showing up to work, and for a year, he messed up every project. For the next year, there's no way I'm giving him any projects because he's going to mess those up. But right now, he's sitting in the office and they're not giving him anything. He's not on the computer or phone or anything. He's just talking to you. You're like, well, he hasn't made a mistake right now. So, let's sign him up for another year contract. And we'll give him a raise. What are you, ridiculous? Right? So what's the point of that? Point number 2. Parents, whether you are a parent or not a parent, everybody knows Parenting 101 is the following. What you are not supposed to do to a child is ever say when they do something wrong. Anybody know what you're not supposed to say? Huh? Right, fantastic, right? You're such a bad kid, right? There's lots of other things you also shouldn't say. There's a long list of things you shouldn't say. But this is the classical one. You're such a stupid kid. You're such a rotten. You're never supposed to say that to them. Instead, what should you do that seems so let's say it differently. You would say something like, right? Okay, great. But you know what? You are a kid, but you just did a bad thing. Or maybe you're really a good kid, but you're just doing something that's wrong. Why is that? No, the kid's a jerk. Look what he just did. He's a jerk. Why don't you ever call somebody, or a kid especially, why don't you do that? Yep.
Maybe because if you label him, then he will start to internalize it, and then you'll become that label.
Awesome. No?
No,
awesome. Right? If you label the kid, hey, you're just a rotten kid, then the kid starts to believe, hey, I guess I'm just a rotten kid. That's who I am. I'm the rotten kid. I remember actually PD day at Chat. My second PD day. The first PD day I did not go because it was PD day, so I didn't show up. They said, where are you? And I'm like, it's PD day. There's no school on PD day. They're like, you're a teacher. I'm like, okay. You know what it stands for? I'm like, perfect day? I don't know. So the second day I showed up. But it's a good thing that I did, right? Because no one said anything about the first day. But the second day, I remember we had a presenter. And the presenter got out there and said, think about something that you are. or a quality that you think you are. And think back to the first time you were ever that. Right? And people, it was really amazing. Like, people took it very seriously. And people are saying, you know what, I remember when I was in 3rd grade, my teacher said I was like, really shy, and I realized, yeah, I'm shy. And someone else said, I remember my friends, and all this stuff. And then he said something really, really amazing. He said, it's amazing. You were like 6, right? Sir, one individual, you're 73 now. So at 6, somebody said something, that's who you are. 6, what do you know? At 6, you weren't even like toilet trained possibly. So you're going to continue playing well. I'm not the toilet trained kid. It's, well, 76. Okay, so that's all. It's a horrible joke. Those are laughing probably to get how horrible it really was. Right? But you don't play it out. You don't play it out. Right? But he said that's what we do, because you get labeled to play it out. So you never do that to a kid. The Rambam, Maimonides, says you never call a person a Rasha, an evil person. Why? Because if I'm an evil person, well, of course, the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I'm a horrible person. So maybe the same could apply to you, right? Not as kids, but as adults. So one of the things we decided as part of this series that we're going to do is choice. So you have 2 choices. We're not going to get through both. Do you want to go down to choice number 1 or choice number 2? Both will help us explain, be a facet of how what we just spoke about, to the kids applies to you as well. We can do it by a show of hands. We're high tech, we'd have something you can punch in or text or do that. Twitter. Who wants number 1? Number 2? Oh, we can just 1 vote. Okay, fine. Satan wins. Okay, so forget about number 1. We'll do that another time. So we're only going to go down here. There's a phenomenal prayer that's said every evening. The prayer goes as follows. It's also in Rosh Hashanah and every other day of the year. It says, V'haser Satan, remove Satan. Again, lots of really disturbing images when you go Google Satan, to be honest. Some which I had no clue how they really got the connection there. So remove Satan from before you, and remove Satan from after you, behind you. I don't know which way you're going on this one, but we'll assume this is in front of you and that's behind you. So that everybody asks, like, what does that mean behind you and in front of you? What about like Satan on you at least, or in front of you? I can understand when somebody says, hey, do this, whatever it is, right? Yeah, this voice. We've all seen, what's the movie?
Devil's Advocate?
No, maybe you haven't seen it. It's a long time ago. Toga. Animal House. There's a scene, and again, I shouldn't remember these types of scenes in life, but there's a scene where a guy's an angel and a devil, and they're fighting, and I ever got this little devil saying, do something, this is what you want. We all have these voices. So the one in front of me that's saying, hey, come on, Rafi, come over here, this will be great, or that one I get. But the one behind you, that's like yesterday's. So one, and there's several explanations. One of the explanations is how, which is beautiful, saying no. The one behind you says, hey, this is who you are. You change, right? You're the blank kid. And as Jews, we do that. So what we often do is, and you fill it in. Well, I'm an Orthodox Jew. I'm an unobservant Jew. I'm a non-Shabbos Jew. I'm a kosher Jew. I'm a non-kosher Jew. I'm a this. We have all these labels. This is who I am. So when I do what it is that I do, well, that's just who I am, right? But we never label people. On Rosh Hashanah, you come to the realization that you're judged by Asher Husham, where you are right now, and right now you are simply a Jew. What kind of Jew? Well, what I was in the past, I got to get rid of that Satan. Not, hey, but this is what I was last year. Who cares? Right? Nobody wants to be what they were last year in any area of their life. They want to grow. But this is probably what I'm going to do next year. Again, people fall for it every year with the gym and say, this year will be different. So maybe we can actually do it correctly and say, I can actually do something differently in the year to come. But of course, if a person realizes labels aren't what it's about, but this is just who I am, that I get judged on. I'm getting judged on the now. What am I now? What do I want to be? What do I want to strive to right now? Yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
So why then in the liturgy is everything we say in the past, why are we not saying I am sinning, or saying I sin?
That's actually fantastic. Short answer to that question, which is a great question. I'll just repeat it. Why do we say this is what I did, this is what I did? Rosh Hashanah actually don't mention anything we did. Yom Kippur is a day where we do the Chatati. Actually, Rosh Hashanah has nothing to do with Tshuva precisely because of this. Rosh Hashanah is about a day of awareness of who am I, right? Who's God? And what does God think of me? Does he believe in me? He does. If he says I'm going to give you another year for who you are right now, it means right now I believe that your thought process is a good thought process. Now to play it out, so don't be naive. You got to see all the things you did wrong and how you're going to change that. So if I'm somebody who just speaks like a lashon hara, like bad about people, like a banshee, I can't say, hey, I'm a lashon hara speaking guy. I got to say, you know what? Right now I really don't want to be that person that always just spreads bad news about others. I'm going to be different. Then I can't be a fool and just say, okay, so now I'm different. No, then I got to do the work and say, okay, in the past, this is where I made a mistake. Right? In the future, this is how I can correct that. Right? So it's the past acknowledging who I am in order to become the person that I want. Again, it would be an interesting discussion about the process of teshuvah in general. How do you rewire? There's 3 different steps. Each one's important. It's a wonderful question, but that's sort of on one foot part of the answer. So that's who you are. Point number 2, right? Point number 1 is that understanding being tethered up there. Point number 2 of God is Him saying, hey, listen, you, I totally believe in you. You're one of mine. You're one of my heaves. I totally think you're great. Right? Oh, but I did this in the past. Right now. Who are you right now at that moment? Right now, when you're sitting here and you think, if I had to rewrite my script, right, and not take the labels that I was or the labels that I play out, and let's be honest, most of us don't even choose our labels. We were born into them. Right? And my parents were born into them from them, and usually it just happens by either people ramp it up a little bit or ramp it down a little bit, but very few people said, you know what, I thought about it as a tabula rasa, and let me see what I think I'd like to be. That's Rosh Hashanah number 2. God saying you can be anything. Right? Number 3. So if we go to this guy, or we go to this guy, which one do you think looks more like God? No, seriously. This guy? Or this guy? Morgan Freeman? Let's take it out. By show of hands. If I had to say the word, think of God, which picture would pop into your mind's eye? If you think Morgan Freeman, raise your hand. If you think this guy, raise your hand. Like how ludicrous. Who's ever seen God to even have an image of God? Right? But we sort of put these images that are on there, which is exactly actually what makes it difficult to believe in the whole concept anyhow, whether it's this guy or Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman might be better dressed, his hair might be longer, I don't really know what exactly God's about. But we have these images, right? One of the best teachings about God is that God actually has absolutely, the reason why we don't have any of these things is because we don't think God has any image. But there's a paradox with that. What's the paradox? The paradox is, on one hand, we don't draw images of God because we say God has no image, and at the same time, what do we say? We say that we're created in the image of God. You get the paradox of it, right? We don't draw God, we don't put pictures up on God, we don't, there's lots of, jokes that can be said in many different ways, but probably all of them would be offensive to just about everyone, right? We don't go ahead and draw images of God. Because there is no image of God. And that's part of the reason that so many people run away from the image of God, because if somebody says, you expect me to believe in that or that, I'll be like, no. So great, the same God you don't believe in, I don't believe in. Because how can I possibly limit it to something so silly? So the question is, what does it mean then if there is no image yet I'm created in an image? So, a little bit more choice, because there's always more to learn, and that's part of the reason why I love to put choice. We're not going to get through everything. You can choose door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. For the explanation, 3 different explanations of how we can understand the image of God in a way that will be so relevant to everyday life and every person in this room. So take your pick. We can have it by show of hands. Who wants door number 1? Raise your hand. What are you choosing this on, by the way? Who wants door number 2? And door number 3. Door number 3 wins. Okay, I knew that was for some reason. Door number 3. I can't change what it is, right? That's weird. Door number 3, Genesis 3:22. Genesis 3:22 says, I don't expect anybody here to be able to get it unless you're a missionary, because they know they're like Bible damn cold. Right? 3:22 says that we're like God, Yodea Tov Hara. We actually know what's right and what's wrong, morally right and wrong. Human beings are created in the image of God as opposed to everything else out there. Every blade of grass, every animal, every star, sun, doesn't have a moral knowledge of what's right and good. Just like God understands there's right and wrong, which is why we have a sense of a code of conduct, of things that are right and things that are wrong, which might have looked very different 3,000 years ago. But we do have to, and we should be proud of the tradition we come from because it has so many rich ideas in it. Right? We, just like God who has a sense of right and wrong, human beings are endowed with this understanding that we actually deep down know what's right and what's wrong. So the first day is understanding tethering, the first piece. The second piece is God then saying, wait, but I believe in you. Why does he believe in us? Because we're created in his image. What's his image? It means if you sit down and think, have a discussion with your friends around a cup of wine, around a table one evening, and just say, let's think about rights and wrongs out there. Again, beautiful thing, we're not sitting there and talking about denominations. We're not sitting there and talking about who's right and who's wrong. We're just talking to people that sit down and explore rights and wrongs. It'd be really interesting to see where we come up with. Right? And ultimately, right, those are the ones you didn't choose, by the way. Ultimately, it's all about the choices that we make. Rosh Hashanah is all about the choices that we make. Right? That's being in the image of God. You only have choice if there's a right and a wrong. It doesn't make a difference right? Whether you chose door 1, door 2, or door 3, it didn't really matter. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. Different pieces, it wasn't dependent on anything, right? If there was something that this is a right choice and that's a wrong choice, now you have a choice, right? If my wife likes flowers and chocolate, no big deal. My wife's allergic to chocolate, right? But likes flowers and I buy her chocolate, it's a wrong choice because I know it's wrong. That makes my choice meaningful. And when I do it right, that's what makes the flowers meaningful as well. So let's just recap quickly. Door number 1, right? The first piece that we spoke about is that idea of going out on an edge, right? Rosh Hashanah is about taking a step. That step that might be an uncomfortable step, a step that goes a little bit out there, but we can only take, one of my friends used to say, one of these extreme camp counselors used to say, you gotta let go to grow, right? To take that leap, to be something more than you were, you sometimes just have to let go of your safe space, but you don't worry, you're safe, you can take that space, right? And in fact, if I remember correctly, you can correct me, that piece that was tethering up there only gives a certain amount. You can't take too big of a step off there because that would be bad, right? If you're like hanging 3 stories down, right? Again, that would be a great thrill, but they won't let you do that. That's too much. They let you go out just a little bit, right? A little bit beyond your comfort zone, right? Number 2, why do we go beyond our comfort zone? Because we understand ultimately that in our core, right, we're not who we think we are. We can be anything that we want to be, right? Our past doesn't dictate our future in any way whatsoever. And that's why number 3, we realize that this whole concept of God, right? We don't have an image, a physical image of God. There's a sense of who exactly is this that we're supposed to be in the image of. We make our choices and we make them count. Life is important. Our time is important, right? As we know, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, every year that we go through the choices that we make, we seem to have that much more meaning, either good or pain, as a result of those decisions, because they take us down paths. And therefore, Rosh Hashanah, I think, if I could sum it up in a picture, is really a time where we say there's so many choices that are out there, but Rosh Hashanah is a time you just stop. You just stop exactly where you are. Before you take a right, a left, an up, a down, a this, a wrong, just you stop and you just think, Basher Yusham, exactly where you are at that moment. What am I now? What would I like to be? How do I get there? And I think if Rosh Hashanah is approached in that manner, every holiday is really a signpost for different ideas. Rosh Hashanah is like, let's start, right? You stop 3, 2, 1, and then you go. Right? Yom Kippur, like was asked as well, phenomenal is that idea of saying, great, I know where I want to go, but got to be honest, got to do some of the work to get there. Right? Sukkot, which we're going to have, I think a class on the 2nd of October, is about, what happens after Sukkot's over in the rest of the year that takes place, when there's nothing going on. Right? After that, Hanukkah, each one of these have such important messages and ideas, which aren't about how do I sit there and become more Jewish, as if I'm there to serve Judaism. It's the opposite. There's this technology of thought called Judaism, which has so much wisdom in it there for us. And Rosh Hashanah, I think, is really that Happy New Year where we start off and say, you know what, life matters. Right? It's not eat, drink, whatever for tomorrow, whatever. It's about, wait, but I got my whole life ahead of me. I'm at a stage in life, especially all of us in this room, myself included, where the decisions that I make are going to build either things that I'm really proud of down the road and become that person or not. And then ultimately, once we have that in focus and we're clear, then we shoot off, and really what Shana Tova is, it's not a happy new year. Happiness comes from a good new year. When something's done well and good, automatically a person's happy. A lot of people can be happy out there, at least on the outside, but there's nothing good going on, but they pretend, right? Really, it should always stem from the sense of goodness and move on. So a couple of quick things in closing. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out this night. It's such an awesome way to start the new year, I think. Secondly, I really want to, I've had the opportunity myself to meet everybody here. Please come across and say hi. I just want to introduce you to a couple people who work at the house so you can say hi to them as well. We've got Jody Katzik, who's been with us for a bunch of years, raising her hand. Who's phenomenal. She's really If Isaac worked there, she's married to, I'd say Isaac, and then Jody's the one who keeps him going. But it never works the other way, saying, but the man behind the woman. You never say that kind of thing. The man behind the woman. I told you, it's all about the women. We know, right? We also recently, changed and expanded Kobe Siegel's role, which is phenomenal as well. Kobe Siegel used to just be volunteer, and now he's strategic development as well. Wonderful guy, total neshama. There's not a body there. There's no image. It's really just this pure neshama. All of everything he does. Danny Richmond, who's not officially, but he's so unofficially a part of the family from day one. You should just get to know Danny if you haven't known him. Emily, I don't know where Emily is. Emily is one of our 2 most recent hires. Emily is our program manager assistant. Phenomenal addition. It's great to have her as well. And we also got a great recruit in from New York, Rabbi Josh Copperwas, who's actually originally Torontonian. He's back back in town, so he'll be here for a while, which is fantastic. And it's phenomenal to have him. He's actually giving the next thing in October, I believe. And really, at the end of the day, none of it would be meaningful without everyone